Alrighty. Online retailers. Martin Luther has allegedly said that the Christian shoemaker does his duty not by putting little crosses on the shoes, but by making good shoes, because God is interested in good craftsmanship. I really couldn't write a book about how the church and the internet work together without addressing the very real nature about how the web is changing how we buy things. Companies like Amazon have turned the publishing world on its head with self-publishing options not seen before now. What used to take a publishing contract and a print run of 5,000 to 10,000 books can be crowdfunded and put on Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing for nothing more than sweat equity. Brick and mortar music stores around the country are closing every day because the music is downloaded and streamed. Even handmade goods are switching to small shops, small websites that can get you a piece of jewelry from wherever you are to wherever you are. But the quote from the iconic reformer aside, what does the Bible have to say about online business? A just balance and scales are the Lord's, and all the weights in the bag are his work. Online businesses used to just be honest and should be just as honest and based on integrity and good business as in real life, while faster, cheaper, and more targeted selling online, as Christians at least need to be with identifiable shade of Christian ethics. Jesus is fully aware of your marketing tactics and advertising campaigns, as he is of your salvation, which should call us to a different standard of online than your average person. While not easy to find ways to make money online, to avoid flirting with the boundaries that we have created in Christian ethics. Pen names show us the dynamic the most. A common thing in the writing world, having a pen name can let you write and sell work that you could be ashamed of. Shame in our real-life actions serves a purpose. It shows us where the boundaries of what is acceptable and not. But a pen name of an online account allows you to hide your actual identity as a bridge over any shame that your conscience wants to cross. Pastors and Christian authors can write wholesale pulp erotica under a pen name, and with a diligent enough approach to online activity, never get caught by anyone but the Almighty. These temptations to the idea of someone being are not something absent from biblical instruction. He said to his disciples, "Temptations to sin are sure to come, but woe to those through whom they come. It would be better for him to have a millstone hung around his neck if he were cast into sea, that he should cause one of these little ones to sin." Luke 17, 1-2. Christians in general should feel this way about their conduct online. So should other Christians, planning on a pen name and some work writing pulp. Jesus is in charge of the markets, just as he oversees the universe. And we Christians need to have a different and holy ethic for our online business. We can't forget the scope of God's ownership of creation. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. Psalm 50, verse 10. Our next hurdle will be the viability and respect of online work, and pay, especially for clergy. For the scripture says, "You shall not muzzle an ox when it treads on the grain, and the laborer deserves its wages." 1 Timothy 5:18. With our integrity in place, I think that Christians should be able to make money online without scoff from other parties. You will find that most people will vouch for an unpaid pastoral staff, usually aren't on it. And the same goes for this. A pastor's blog should have advertising on it where appropriate. Why? So he can make ethical money where he can. Even when building the church, Paul made tents and supported himself during a ministry. With so many viable passive income options online, pastors should get themselves off the church budget with some elbow grease, or could get themselves off the church budget with some elbow grease and faithful work, instead of by congregational vote. What we could use these systems of ad revenue to bolster the budding church plants. A daily vlog by a church planter, watched and thus supported by every member of the church or better. The church denomination could fund his salary and free his small congregation from the burden of it as well. That doesn't mean you get to choose your ads in some cases, but which means God's message in a YouTube video will be preceded by a scantily clad pop singer's new auto-tuned hit. But God's message will still be paid for ultimately by a God who is in charge of the internet. The scorn people can get for this exact scenario is shameful. A pastor posting sermons shouldn't have to fear the massively complicated advertising algorithm to post his sermon, or the reaction from his congregation because of them. Those sermons could provide countless opportunities for grace to be multiplied, only to be stopped by a concerned yet misguided conservative committee at church. If we have sown spiritual things among you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? 1 Corinthians 9:11. Then we get to the weird world of niche marketing. There's a disturbing trend flooding the new markets, particularly online, where cheap products to build a quick dollar Type in a self-publishing tips into YouTube and you will see a surprising amount of videos teaching the subtle art of scamming people with ebooks online. They won't call it that, but a cursory look at what the book claims, look into the claims and actions of these self-publishers show what a lot of their true colors are. From how to get the cheapest covers, to ghostwriting books, to flip and sell, to their actions flirt with a line between publishing and production that floods the market with books meant to catch every stray keyword in Google's search term. It's shady and not something you're likely to see a lot of Christians doing, thankfully, but that doesn't mean that we don't rip people off in the name of Jesus. There's a website that will go unnamed in this book, and an app that has one of the most popular among preachers and Bible college students. It gives entire libraries and books to the user at a fraction of a cost of the physical book libraries, and does so with quality and speed and accuracy. But what scares me is how we seem to be okay with Christians getting other Christians to pay for what could be a free product, and maybe what should be a free product. Much of the coveted literature in pastor circles isn't new, and I mean I love a lot of the latest writers in the Christian world, but my favorites have been dead for a while now. I'll call it the latent reformer in me, but books aren't the same when they're not old and written by people who are with Jesus right now, and I'm a writer. And I don't write half as good as Spurgeon or Edwards. But the one thing most of these books are is what's known as the public domain. When these books make reproductions that can be made without permission and royalty payments because their authors have long since gone to glory and the book is in a healthy chunk of time has been deemed as a public work. So what happens when an app makes that book available to the end user at an annual cost? A cost, frankly, I'm willing to pay, and one so negligible for the number of goods I receive that I don't mind doing so yearly. Does that change the fact that the book could be free, but isn't? Capitulation isn't a hall pass for sin, and the nature of the ebook is transferring of books online brings to light a very serious question, one of when and where, but most importantly how, Christians make their money online because of the online ability of the internet. If a book can be free, and once converted can be republished for a few clicks of a mouse, then should it? Should Christians be selling it to all other Christians at least? Some of the greatest works of Christendom are public domain books. We could copy and paste the collection of works of every college-bound every Bible college-bound teen with the ease of installing new updates on our laptop. But if there's a choice, a conscious or unconscious, to make a profit on this market of people, how is that not mistreating them? The scriptures talk a lot about taking care of the poor. There are laws concerning gleaning. When you have reaped a harvest on your land, you shall not reap your field right up to its edge, nor shall you gather the gleanings after your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and for the sojourner. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 23:22. Or taking care of the needy. For there will never cease to be poor in your land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, and to the needy and to the poor in your land. Deuteronomy 15:11, ESV. All placed in the scriptures so that material blessings of God would be held onto by his people for a profit margin. There are plenty of rich people in the scriptures, and plenty of generous people as well. And the aforementioned app might be one of the best intentions, but would we tolerate a homeless shelter charging market rent to those in need of its service? We wouldn't stand by as a food bank had a tip jar. We wouldn't, but we are okay with the reselling of effortlessly transmitted books, and I'm not sure why. Big disclaimer time. This is in no way a knock or a slight of the app in question. It still remains nameless, but I have a hunch that all the pastors know exactly which one I'm talking about. I just see what I see and write what I feel convicted to write, and this is still one of the best tools for pastors and college students to have, if not be bought for them, and I would never want to see it go away. But if we could get this resource crowdfunded so that the subscription it currently seeks were removed, we simply don't know how richly the world would get affected. We simply don't know how richly this would affect the church body as a whole. That was a fun little chapter to write, and it deals with a lot of stuff that I as an author have to kind of wrestle with because, I want to sell lots of books and make a living off selling all those books, but the last thing I want to do is make money off of the church in a way that's kind of like predatory. I don't want to write a trendy book that gets me lots of book sales and clout that, ends up in Value Village because no one really takes it. That's a great way for you to see whether or not a book's worth it or not. If you go to Value Village and you see lots of copies of the same book, and a great example of this, especially for younger authors, I write teen fiction as well. If you go, you're going to see hordes of the most popular books. You're going to see big chunks of like Divergent and Harry Potter and the Hunger Games and Twilight and all these kind of like bang flash young adult fiction. Why? Because it's a fad and it was just used to make money. The people didn't keep that forever. It didn't educate their lives forever when they bought Twilight. Some people did. But, you know, like when they got that book, they consumed it as a product and then discarded it afterwards because it could no longer add value to their life. When Christians are making things, we want to make things that add value to people's lives for their entire life until we pass away, so that, you know, that can be part of the product, and we don't do that. So, yeah, this is a tough chapter to kind of really wrestle with, but I did want to make sure that, you know, I talked about it. And the app that's mentioned, I know you know what it is if you're a pastor. I know you know what I'm talking about, and I still want to stress, I love that app. I love the people that work there. I've seen a lot of videos from them. I use it. I have an account. I just realized that, like, I can make my books effortlessly free once I've done all the hard work of putting it on. And if we could get that app to be as free as the Bible app is from Lifeway, with all of its resources at every one of its levels as a church, we would fundamentally change how educated and resourced pastors, theologians, and writers in the church are. And it would just raise everyone's boat up like a rising tide. So I'm not willing to call them out, but I do think it's important. And if you know what I'm talking about, I hope you'll start looking at it that way as well. And then we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, we'll go on to the next chapter. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon.